promise.
And through you, Madam Chair, I accept that explanation, and I wanted a point of clarification from the chairperson because of what the charter has to say. I, quite frankly, came a couple times, if you recall, and suggested a few things, and you said, if it doesn't pass, you can come back in May. I remember that. And so I personally think there are several issues in the charter that need to be tweaked. But my follow-up question would be to you as the chairperson, through the chairperson to the chairperson, is the current board that you currently have, the appointees under your charge, are they going to be able to objectively now review the charter as it is, as opposed to making a recommendation of a mayor or form of government? Because they all seem to have gone to that decision quite early in the process, as you've explained to the public. And I'm wondering, do you need new members? Have you polled the members to see if they still want to continue on the Charter Review Committee?
Our first meeting back, that's the first thing we basically did, was ask everybody if you're prepared to go ahead. And while we did this process, we had agreed basically one time we were going to parallel and do the existing charter and also do the change. We felt that we couldn't do a good job doing both at the same time. So we made a decision to go ahead with the mayor and town council. And if that did not pass, if town didn't accept it, we would go back and do the other. We just felt that we couldn't do two at the same time. I mean, we spent hundreds of hours writing a new charter, and we just couldn't have done both. So that's what we did. And if you remember, we talked about how we could get some representation for people who are summer residents that own homes here and can't, and we said we couldn't because we checked into the Commonwealth of Mass laws. We found something in Connecticut that allowed it, but Massachusetts Constitution did.
Right.
And we found a way to get around that a little bit.
Right.
And actually be a legal way of doing it.
I'm satisfied with those answers, Madam Chair. I just wanted some clarification for my own benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, we actually, asked the members, are you willing to go ahead and work on it this way? And the answer was yes.
Okay. Is
I'm sorry, Walter.
Mr. Cruz, I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair, yeah, I have issues with this because when you first came out, you were already mindset to change the government. The charter says go through the charter and see what was wrong. So if you went through the charter and seen what was wrong, and you're going and changing, what you're doing now is what you should have done in the beginning. To me, the way I look at it, you've already done what you thought was correct. Your job is over with as far as I'm concerned right now. How many times are you going to come up the bat, before you hit? If this doesn't work, you're going to come back again. So if you went, you presented your case, town meeting says no. As far as I'm concerned, the charter committee is disbanded. Thank you.
Okay.
That's your opinion, Mr. Cruz. You're entitled to it, but the Charter Committee
Yes, I
was
am.
appointed for a term that will not expire until November. So I understand and respect your personal opinion with regard to what you feel they've done and what they should or should not be doing in the future. However, I have to say that their expiration date of their term to be appointed is not until November. So they still exist until November. Unless are you going to make a motion to? I don't think we can undo appointments. I don't think there's anything in the charter, in our charter, that speaks to undoing appointments or terms of appointment.
But maybe they could add that.
Good point.
And if I may,
And I think in some cases we might need that.
if I may,
There have been cases, but
I do
that is a problem.
understand. I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Cruz. Well, I do understand what you're saying, but I also know that that is when they had decided to go in that direction. They had said if it didn't work, I believe that they said it at their public meetings. You may have said it at the beginning in your introduction of your presentation at town meeting, which was part of their report. So if their report said we'll be back in the fall, that was the report that we heard. The previous Charter Review Committee came back, I believe it was 5 or 7 times. They started in 1999 reviewing it. They came back in the spring of 2000, and I believe they continued coming back until 2003 because there was something else. It wasn't accepted. They kept working on check the town reports. That's the facts. And so I think that because they try to take a unique, avant-garde, proactive, progressive approach that may have shocked people, I don't think that you cut them off and say that's the end of it. I think that they thought, and I know I was there, as soon as they decided to go to that form, I stepped back because there was nothing for me to be a liaison to when they were looking at mayoral council form. But in the beginning, it was not a unanimous decision. There were people that wanted to go back to 3 full-time selectmen with no town administrator, but instead an executive secretary. There were some that were looking at going to a representative form of town meeting. And so, but through that, and you can say it was relatively close, but it was several hours of the discussion and looking, and when the majority went in one direction, I think as a team, as a group, they all worked diligently to look at that, even though I know some of them didn't want that. But they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I have great confidence in this board, or in this committee, that they've turned around and they've said, okay, that isn't what people want. Let's look at this. Let's go through it. And I don't see anything wrong with it. And as a matter of fact, I think that it is their charge to do this. And if I may, one more thing. And my suggestion on this is fall town meeting, warrant closes usually the 1st, the 6th to the 10th of September.
Yep.
My personal recommendation, and the rest of the board can chime in, is split up and get to these things, get on their agenda so that you can get them all done, say by the end of June, and then you can work on going through the stuff with you guys. Give yourself plenty of time to do the work so you can have it written up so that you can get it by first or second week of September.
What would you think of having the department heads start right now and write up recommendations and get them to us so that we don't have to do what you're talking about?
If Mr. Andrews thinks that would be appropriate, that's something that you would talk to him about. But I think as far as the boards, committees, and commissions, I would call every one of them and say, what's the earliest agenda that we can get on, and send 3 of your members into it. That's just my opinion. So, I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Winslow?
I just want to say to both of you that, and I've said this before, an enormous amount of work went into the proposal that you put forth at town meeting, and I commend you for your efforts. However, I share Mr. Cruz's concerns, and my biggest concern is whether you can be effective at presenting a successful proposal. And I realize how much time you put into it. I attended all, but I think one of your meetings for the public. And I also think that the message that if we don't get what we recommend, we'll come back with some other